Honda's improved, smarter, more powerful CRZ is an affordably priced live-wire sports coupe that, rather uniquely, uses hybrid power for fun as well as frugality. Sensible, it seems, can also be sporty. Do environmentally friendly vehicles really have to forego any semblance of excitement? You might think that, but Honda doesn't. For proof, they brought us this car back in 2010, the little CRZ Sports Coupe, a hybrid, we were told, that people without hemp sandals and a lentil-based diet might want to drive. On paper, it was based on the same IMA petrol-electric technology that was first used in this Japanese brand's very first attempt at hybrid coupe motoring. The stodgy, faintly futuristic and thoroughly odd first-generation Insight model of 1999. But in reality, the creators of this car were far more influenced by a much more appealing, conventionally engined Honda design, the brilliant little CRX coupe of the 1980s. That car was, and still is, one of my favourite small, affordable sports cars, perfect for its era, just as this one is today. And this CRZ echoes more than just its predecessor's looks, with fun as high a priority as frugality, saving the future of enthusiast motoring at the same time as saving the planet. And doing so with a little extra zip in the improved, more powerful, revised version we're going to look at here, launched at the very end of 2012 in an attempt to revitalise sales in the face of increasing small coupe segment competition. Smarter to look at and still fiendishly smart beneath the bonnet, it's certainly an unusual choice, but one that you might enjoy making? Let's find out. If you were setting out to create an affordable, fun, sparky sports car, then you probably wouldn't think of saddling it with the complication and weight of a hybrid power plant. And you certainly wouldn't think of basing it on a platform as resolutely unsporting as that of Honda's family-orientated 5-door Mark II hybrid Insight model. But then Honda has always been a company that likes to do things differently, an approach that sets it apart from less innovative rivals. But just how much fun is it possible to have with only 1.5 litres of engine beneath the bonnet, a petrol power plant lacking either a turbocharger or a supercharger to wake it up? Well, quite a lot, as it happens. For one thing, this unit does have an extra ingredient to give it a little extra zip, an electric motor that sits between the engine and the gearbox and contributes an extra 20 PS when required to boost total output to 136 PS. No, I'd agree, that's not a huge amount, even if it is 13 PS more than this car was originally launched with. But don't despair. In today's congestion-soaked roads, ultimate fun has less and less to do with ultimate power, and more to do with ultimate handling, something that Honda has thoroughly mastered over the years. And for that, the ingredients are undoubtedly in place. A body as stiff as that of the last generation and aggressively entertaining Civic Type R hot hatch. Sharp steering, a great driver-focused cockpit, and a brilliant engine note. Best of all, this is the only hybrid car I can think of with a manual gearbox. And not any manual gearbox, but a lovely, slick, short shift setup that's my personal nomination for the best stick shift in the world. As an enthusiast, this alone would make me want to buy this car. It's all part of a perfectly judged package that's a delicious throwback to the golden era of the 80s hot hatch. Or at least it would be if it included a rock-hard ride, a cheap interior, and prodigious running costs, none of which are on offer here. It's all a lot cleverer than that, with a really neat bit provided by this Honda's 3-mode drive system. It's basically a way of adapting the IMA hybrid technology to suit driver preferences, based around 3 modes: Sport, Normal and Econ, that you activate via these rocker switches just adjacent to the steering wheel. Now, you're able to change the parameters via these switches of the IMA hybrid operation, the power steering assistance, and the throttle mapping for either more performance or more efficiency as required. So, for example, you'd choose Econ in heavy traffic, reducing the petrol engine's contribution and maximising the benefits of the standard start-stop system. When the traffic clears, you'd switch to Normal to give you the proper throttle response and low-down torque that you'll then need. Either way, if you drive efficiently, you'll be able to maintain an eerie green glow from behind the circular digital speedometer ahead of you that will change first to turquoise, then to blue should your right foot flex excessively on the throttle. But hang on, isn't doing just that part of the reason why you'd want to buy a sports car in the first place? Honda agrees that it is, and so has provided a third sport mode that you can select when at last the traffic clears and you can let this little terrier off the leash. Doing so not only changes the instrument backlighting to red to get you in the mood, but releases extra torque from the electric motor. There's 190 Newton meters of torque in total in this revised car, as well as sharpening the steering and the throttle response. And you're going to need that extra torque if you're to match Honda's quoted rest to 62 mile an hour sprint figure of just over 9 seconds. That's about half a second quicker than was achieved by the original version of this car, on the way to an unchanged maximum speed of 124 miles an hour. To achieve that, mind you, you're going to need to make liberal use of this S++ Sport button on the steering wheel, which is probably the most important extra feature that's been added to this improved first generation model. Now, it'll only work if the battery, now new tech lithium ion rather than old tech nickel metal hydride, is more than 50% charged. And when you do press it, you get a useful power boost, an electric power boost from the motor for up to 10 seconds that may be just the thing to get you past irritating dawdlers or heavy Arctics and back to having fun. The CRZ looks exactly as a Honda sports car should. Its wedgy profile and chopped back tail showing us precisely what an 80s CRX coupe would look like if it were modernised for a very different world. Smartening tweaks to this improved model include revisions to the front bumper and grille. While at the rear there's a more aerodynamic diffuser. Larger 17-inch alloy wheels too on this top GT variant, though these do lose you a few tenths on the 0 to 62 mile an hour sprint time, and they add a fraction to your running costs. Under the skin lies a platform loosely shared with Honda's other hybrid Jazz and Insight models, though it's shorter and lighter with a wider track and a wheelbase that pushes the wheels right out to the corners of the car for extra poise and balance. The interior is almost exactly as before, apart from the addition of this prominent S+ button on the steering wheel for extra acceleration when you want it. But then vast changes weren't really needed here. Yes, it would be nice to see higher quality soft touch materials used around the cabin, but then Honda's designers are rather good at creating great cabins from very average materials. And this is a great cabin. You sit on winged, very supportive sports seats, and as with almost every Honda, you're positioned in a place that makes you feel totally at one with the car and ideally set to appreciate an array of space-age, high-tech instruments that could have been lifted straight from the Starship Enterprise. It all ought to be rather daunting, but somehow it isn't. The main air conditioning and driving mode controls are grouped into two pods that sit either side of the instrument binnacle and fall to hand easily behind the steering wheel. You've got chunky, easy-to-use controls with bold white fonts that stand out against glossy black backgrounds. Lots of storage too, 3 cup holders and various boxes and a decently sized glove box to store your odds and ends. The nose is low and racy, so it helps that the driving position is 2. And only really the rearward view is flawed, the back window intrusively bisected by a bar that divides the two-part rear screen. The leather trim you get on this top GT model isn't extended to the rear, where backseat accommodation is for really young children only, as you can see, unless you've got some particularly accommodating friends who need a lift home from the pub. The boot's reasonable though. Despite the necessarily raised height of the floor to accommodate the new lithium-ion batteries beneath, you get 225 litres here, with a further narrow slot underneath the boot floor in which to put valuables if you want to keep them away from prying eyes. If you need more space, pushing forward the rear backrest reveals up to 401 litres. Original pricing for this CRZ started at around £17,000 when it was first launched, but since then Honda has reduced the range of models on offer to only the two plushest Sport and GT variants, which means that prices start at around £21,000 for the Sport and around £23,000 for this top GT version with its leather trim and larger 17-inch alloy wheels. Without realistic sporty hybrid competition, Honda feel confident that this car remains in a class of its own, but potential buyers who aren't just considering it as a hybrid will also have their eye on other frugally minded yet sporty coupes. If you're considering the sport version of this CRZ, for example, then for the same kind of money you could get a mini coupe Cooper SD that would be slightly cleaner and more economic, but would be noisier and would drink from more expensive black pump fuel. The same objections apply to the two most obvious affordable to run small coupe rivals you'd pitch against this top GT model, the Peugeot RCZ HDI and the Volkswagen Scirocco 2-litre TDI, both priced pretty identically against a CRZ GT. And that's all assuming that you are comparing this Honda to affordable small coupes, rather than to the many diesel hot hatches that you could get for around the same kind of money. Whichever CRZ you choose, you should find it to be decently equipped. Even the Sport model gets 16-inch alloy wheels, power-heated, power-folding mirrors, daytime running lights, rear privacy glass, auto headlamps and wipers, rear parking sensors, and a decent quality CD stereo that's USB compatible and has an auxiliary jack, along with controls on the multifunction leather steering wheel. It also has a subwoofer and tweeter, and it changes its volume according to the speed that you're going. You also get cruise control and a trip computer, leather covering for the gear knob, climate control that also cools the glove box, and a set of aluminium drilled pedals. Buyers of this top GT model get larger 17-inch alloy wheels, along with high-intensity discharge headlamps with washers, a large glass panoramic roof, leather-heated seats, and Bluetooth compatibility for mobile phones. On both trim levels, you get the option of satellite navigation. Safety-wise, as well as Isofix child seat fastenings, anti-whiplash head restraints, and twin front, side and curtain airbags, there are all the usual electronic features for traction and braking, as well as brake assist to help in emergency stops, and Honda's vehicle stability assistance technology. Enthusiastic drivers may find it hard to believe that there's as much fun to be had from eco-friendly driving as there is at full chat, but that's precisely Honda's thinking with this car. If the traffic flow won't let you switch to sport, then simply switch back to normal or econ and grow your plants. I'd better explain. Keep the instrument backlighting at green rather than it drifting into blue. You do that by feathering the throttle, watching the econometer and obeying the gear shift light. If you do that, you're rewarded by the appearance of leaves in a section of the instrument pack, a leaf graphic. Now, it eventually will grow into a fully fledged flower if you continually drive frugally, watching a gauge that tells you how much the battery is drawing from the engine or giving back to it. Get all this right, and there's the potential to achieve a combined fuel consumption figure of 56.5 miles to the gallon and 117 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's in the Sport model. If you go for this GT variant with its larger 17-inch alloy wheels, the figures fall to 54.3 miles to the gallon and 122 grams per kilometre. Now, these statistics are helped by a standard start-stop system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, waiting in traffic or stuck at the lights. The trip computer enables you to gauge continually how close you're getting to these figures by allowing you to see the average fuel consumption figures generated over your last 3 trips. Figures that may not be quite as good as you could have got from a comparable diesel-powered sporty coupe or hot hatch rival. Remember though that diesel engines run on pricier fuel and open up a whole further can of worms with their higher emissions of nitrogen oxide and particulate matter. In any case, Honda reckons that this CRZ hybrid will be cheaper and easier to maintain over its lifespan, and backs that up with the reassurance of a 3-year 90,000 mile warranty, a 10-year anti-corrosion warranty, and an 8-year 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. On top of that, company car tax bills will be low, and insurance on the 1 to 50 scale is Group 17. This remains a fascinating car, a futuristic attempt to fuse frugality with a healthy helping of sheer fun. For the money, of course, there are more dynamic and powerful sports coupes and hot hatches, and naturally there are more efficient hybrids. But there's nothing else that will enable you to bring these two extremes together with such a guilt-free glow. The most recent changes to this car are welcome, especially the extra power which has given it a spark that it previously lacked. But its basic appeal hasn't changed. This is a design that at a stroke makes you feel more hopeful about the future of motoring and about Honda's credentials for remaining at the forefront of cutting-edge technology. Some won't get it, others will fail to see the point. But if speed isn't everything, you've a passion for fast, fun cars, and you're one of those who thinks outside the box, then I think you'll love it.